Thank you very much. That is a very generous introduction. After listening to the conversation yesterday and today, this morning, my comrade Brian and now the panel, I don't think that bio do me any favor because I became a student in the primary one. On what is happening about corporate social responsibility in Uganda. The research we have conducted, just as a disclaimer, realize that there are many efforts and success stories and also worries and concerns by civil society organizations in the continent on how they can take advantage of the low-hanging fruit and an alternative resourcing from the CSR in their country. And this is to say that in all of the Commonwealth countries, CSR is acceptable by the law. The only issue is an enforcement. But enforcement is not the thing we were looking for. The issue is implementation, effective implementation, so that most of us can access resources from CSR. So just for everyone, the Africa Philanthropy Network has been introduced. Just to say that we have very strong anchor member here in the room, and that's the reason that we are here comfortably so. We feel so much at home. We have Civil Source and Uganda NGO Forum as our anchor members here in Uganda. But we also have members now with offices in 41 countries across the continent, and our members are working in and with communities in 51 countries across the continent. Some of them are also coming from USA, the UK, and Belgium and the Netherlands. So, why did we do the study? I wanted just to get back a little bit there, because the mission for the network and the work of our members is to reclaim the power that is in local giving, and also to elevate all practices for philanthropy on the continent. And one of the activities that we did in 2001 was to conduct an operational and legal assessment of what does it take or what is required for civil society actors to develop philanthropy, and especially local philanthropy in their communities, in their countries, and across the continent, so that that philanthropy will be recognized by our governments as a tool for community-led and also a tool for national development. So listening to the conversation since yesterday, that is what is happening. I think, guys, we here in Uganda are working on very fertile land, because there is so much effort by the people, by the government and the private sector to ensure that CSR is becoming an alternative resource to doing development. And the mission for the APN is to make sure that we're changing the way development is done. Yesterday, many presenters here, the speakers, spoke about the mindset change. But that is due to colonization. We were not doing development the way we are doing today. But the colonization and the colonizers, the way they structured development, as my brother Moses started yesterday to tell us, since 1946, maybe a little bit earlier, because they were able to come up with the strategy, so they started a little bit earlier, coming with all sorts of tools, including the missionaries in plus. They have colonized us to believe that the resources from the outside will be the only resources that will help us to become successful and become human. But again, we have many ways of doing development and we have had many ways of doing development. And that is what we want now to elevate and amplify their powers as local philanthropy. How do we then implement the mission we have? Through our members, because the mission is too ambitious, but through our members, we make sure we are nurturing spaces for safe voice, so guys feel very free to voice out anything. And I'm happy I've been hearing people voicing, but there are some few who are shying away, just voice out anything. The spaces where our members have convened are very safe, but also ensuring that we are building networks. And also we are creating spaces for dialogue. So happy to see as many government dignitaries talking about what is happening here. But also we are generating knowledge, the knowledge that will create new narrative or reshape the narrative about how Africans give. Because what exists today is not developed or written by Africans. But also, lastly, we are building a movement of solidarity and a stronger infrastructure that will bring us together to articulate a common agenda for development. Because we want to develop philanthropy, local philanthropy. But if we don't have a common agenda, then the problem there will be we don't have a common voice that we are all able to bring on different tables where we are invited, and a common voice for us to bring to the government. So I'm very happy about the way Africa philanthropy have been identified here and defined, and my sister who spoke to contribute to the last plenary, hammered it all. I will only summarize that for us, the philanthropy and local philanthropy we are talking about here is both financial and non-financial resources, as it had been alluded to through the days, yesterday and today. But when we say we want to reclaim, there we are talking about voice of our people. We are talking about ability to act for our people, and we are talking about our resources and how we protect them. And the power we are talking about here is the power that plays in the form of urgency. Because we know that the act of giving is the act of power. And we would like to see that when we consider giving, that we are talking about here, including the CSR, then it's important to take into account and look at who is giving, to whom it is given, and how is it given. So we have set a very bold vision, really, to change the way development is done and to mobilize alternative resourcing for the civil society actors to become true bridges between people and governments and people and private sector and other key stakeholders. And we believe that the flow of resources should not mean that the dignity of Africans and the continent has to be negotiated away. Because that, I think, is a fundamental principle. And the ability to determine the terms of which giving occurs and for what purpose has to be placed in the hands of those it ought to serve. So understanding that, I want to center our conversation, and I'd like to remind us, most of our conversation around local giving and claiming it and also celebrating it needed to understand these power hierarchies that are produced and sustained along gender, race, and class. And that our members could only serve as a powerful collective voice to alter the global philanthropy landscape, because we see that philanthropy is rooted on those power dynamics. So, on behalf of all of the not-for-profit and APN members gathered here today, and to all government and private sector partners, as we aim towards unlocking the potential for local philanthropy in Uganda, I request you to embrace trusted and long-term partnerships. Gone are the times for civil society organizations to implement short-term projects. The challenges faced are too complex and deep-rooted. Because I've been hearing the language of project. Gone are those times. You are because I am, and I am because you are. So this should be our guiding principle. We need each other. And the civil society, the government and the private sector, as key development actors in Uganda, we need each other. So many operation and policy challenges for civil society on the continent, including Uganda, can be placed in 5 main areas based on our assessment, along with what is the operating environment required for us to nurture philanthropy, local philanthropy especially. On registration, taxation, tax and taxation, resource mobilization, both cross-border and domestic, policy engagement, and the 5th one is government oversight. All these are interconnected. And they all affect not only civil society resilience, but also the development of philanthropic giving in all its forms and manifestation. I'm talking about this because we need to promote CSR, and at the center of this promotion of CSR comes all these 5 key policy concerns, policy and operational concerns. Registration, how are we registered? Tax and taxation, guidelines and policies around domestic and cross-border resource mobilization, government oversight, and policy engagement by citizens. So this week we are celebrating and reclaiming giving. And I've been asked to share about the CSR findings. Most of what was discussed here is an additional information to the findings that we need to experience. The current conversation here, I've heard about this corporate social governance, but we hear more about also corporate social investment. And let me talk from the ignorant point of view, and maybe I'm representing many who are behind me as a citizen of this continent, that investment concept is scaring us a bit. Because that then provides a leeway for the businesses, private sector and corporate, to invest in their own businesses. So one of the things that is important to look for and to push for is to see that we are able to unlock the potential for corporate social responsibility. The research was done, and we had reached 10 countries. 4 countries were to be studied as case study because they are kind of developed a little bit in the wake of coordinated national CSR. And other countries were lacking the national mechanism to coordinate corporate social responsibility. So our intention, and the intention of this research, was for those countries, at least 10 countries, to be taken as a model. What should be an effective mechanism for the not-for-profit to access corporate social responsibility resources? That was the center of the research. It was not about who is accessing. Yes, we asked those questions, but the major one was what should be the mechanism. So there are some of the civil society here in Uganda, when we conducted this study in collaboration with Uganda Angel Forum, were reached and they were asked about corporate social responsibility, about if they have accessed it or not, what benefit does it have into their work, plus. And my major question, because you guys have been seated for a long time today, is by the show of hand. I would like to ask here in the room, for those not-for-profit who are here today, how many of you are celebrating access to CSR? How many of you? I see one hand. I don't know, maybe I cannot count. But if I can count properly, okay, there are some hands. Are we able to see those hands? You can turn back and see those hands if the hands are not coming from the front. And then you can raise a little bit higher up. How many of you are celebrating access to that? To the corporate social responsibility. You have accessed the resources from the private sector, businesses and others, okay? And how many wish to reclaim access? They haven't accessed, they wish to reclaim, they wish to also access them. Okay, there are more hands than before. But for me, the other question to the profit sector and partners who are here is also, by show of hand, how many of you have given to the CSR through not-for-profit? How many of you have given to the not-for-profit? Okay, thank you so very much. And how many wish to enhance their ability to be trusted partners by civil society organizations through CSR giving? Okay, I think there are more hands there. Thank you so very much. For the government, I won't ask you to raise your hands, but for me, I would like to really pose a question to you. And to what extent do you ensure that people and civil society voices are taken into account in sustainable financing and coordination of CSR? Because we are hearing a lot of examples here of those efforts. But then another one for you, the government partners here, with due respect, is what is the role of civil society then in ensuring good governance and accountability of CSR in Uganda? I think these are important questions to think when we are looking to working together to build that. Brief on the research. 10 countries, yes, from 2023 to date. I think some of the data is outdated, so I will not speak to that. In Uganda, it was done in 2023. And I've spoken about the focus of the research. So over and above talking to the people, businesses, for-profit and not-for-profit, about the mechanism that will be more effective, we had also asked them, how can we make CSR more equitable? And how can we make CSR address community urgency, particularly social and economic justice? So a few key findings which I want to share. One I've shared already, that Commonwealth countries, all of them, they recognize CSR as an alternative funding to build partnership between communities and relationship between communities and businesses. It is less recognized as a tool for national development, but it is been recognized by law. Though when we had conversation with some of the government officials, they told us, yes, it is there, but. And I think you have the answers of the but. If we ask but, you can tell us about how many buts are there. In some countries, not Uganda, that is why I'm saying you guys, you are planting this seed on a very fertile land. There are even no laws or policies that speak to the CSR. So civil societies are only trying to volunteer, and some of the businesses who have built friendship, not strategic partnership as yet, friendship with some of the not-for-profit, they receive kind of token, like banners for refreshment when they do their meetings, plus. But there are those kind of voluntary relationship. The law in our governments, most of them, including us here in Uganda, the law, not the practice of today, they include CSR as mandatory to those investors in sectors that are regarded as the main economic sectors, like mining plus. It is less recognized as mandatory by other players. And also government officials told us that it has been a little bit difficult to monitor the implementation because the mechanisms are not in existence. And also what we hear here is also that they raise where the legal framework is lacking, or there is a law, statement of the law, but it's not interpreted into guidelines and procedures for implementation, then accountability becomes an issue. So the government in some areas, including here in Uganda, they told us that they find it relatively difficult to take the businesses into account on how much CSR they're giving to who, and that is why I think the issue of governance is coming up. But this one, I'm saying, when we were developing this, the issue of CSG was upcoming, and we were told that there are efforts to draft some frameworks to look into the monitoring of how CSR is giving. We asked most of the not-for-profit about CSR, and the truth is just a few who were met had a good understanding of CSR. The majority had a mixed understanding. And when I say a few, it amounts to a total of, rounded figure, 24% of those we have interviewed. They knew about what CSR is, how can it be accessed, plus. And some celebrated. But the remaining 76% were not able to talk about or indicate a good understanding and knowledge about CSR. But they also raised some concern about the capacity to structure attractive asks. They raised concern about limited understanding of corporate interests. I'm happy that we were told, at least the previous panel was so useful in telling us what is the interest of the corporate. If we need to come with the ask, then we need to ask for partnerships, strategic partnership rather. But then what is the interest? Most of civil society did not know. They say they don't know. If we go there, what are we going for? What can we ask for? And then they say how to align the corporate interest. They have limitation in terms of the capacity and ability on how to align the corporate interest to community development needs. And some of them say they lack strategy and tools to effectively engage with potential corporate partners. So this is to you anchor institutions here. Those are the needs for most of the partners here. Some have also revealed, and the majority, that it's almost 76%, no, 79% here. They don't approach corporates for CSR contribution because corporates are known for not focusing on interventions that are addressing community needs, human rights, and other social justice needs. And they say these areas are often intentionally neglected. But then we ask them about the opportunity to build and unlock the potential for CSR. And majority say yes, there is an opportunity, great opportunity, and some of them tell us about what is happening. Specifically here in Uganda, some of the civil society actors shared successful stories about collaborating
with corporate entities. Fantastic stories, and we have been hearing them since yesterday. And if you Google, you go the organizations here, you can read about them. And they say the partnership there then had gone beyond funding to include all other shared resources and technical support and strategic alignment. This is to be celebrated, and this is to be learned. And I really hope those who have these lessons, they can also share with others who are now reclaiming resources from CSR. The other civil society actors here in Uganda said CSR can significantly improve or advance their missions, but specifically on education, youth empowerment, and healthcare. So I think those are opportunities if you're working in those areas. Yet, others reported unsuccessful attempt, and they think this is due to the limitation that I've spoken about. If it is lack of their own ability to align, but they also say they think it's lack of corporate and private sector commitment to work with civil society organizations. And this is about 73%, who says over the last 3 years, we have been attempting to access CSR, but our efforts have been fruitless here in Uganda. We asked them then what should be done, what can be a successful mechanism to enhance your access to this. Here we recorded many suggestions, but relevant to this conversation is they say, why don't there be a formal in-country platforms for dialogue between civil society actors and corporate entities? They also said, we really need capacity enhancement to civil society organizations on effective asks and how to build strategic partnership with corporates. They also requested to create a national CSR framework and guidelines, and this was here in Uganda. Some here in Uganda, because of the advancement of technology and youth, mainly youth who were involved, they say developing a digital CSR platform to improve transparency and matchmaking between civil society actors and corporates. Some say the project should be co-created. The ideas for CSR should be co-created with communities to ensure sustainability and relevance. Some say we should advocate for greater government recognition and supportive policies to encourage corporate and to engage more CSAs. Learning from other African countries, most of the countries, especially where we did the research, are also struggling with the same equation, struggling with the same situation. But there are few who are accessing CSR. But I think it's good to share here that where we followed case studies, and I'll share 2 examples, case studies in South Africa and Mauritius. So in South Africa, CSR is well integrated, and it is embedded in registrations of every and each business. But then the proportion of how much need to be given varies. Some organizations are asked to give only 2% of their profit, others go up to 4% of their profit, and these are like those who are investing in mining and more profitable sectors. In Mauritius, they have, and this one for South Africa, it is in many sectors, in different sectors, and it has been centered in the registration of businesses. In Mauritius, they have created a national CSR commission, which is mandated businesses to apportion 2%. Before it was 1%, now it's 2% of profit for social cause. of which 0.5, they are allowed to use it for their own purposes. But 1.5 is being assessed and it goes to the civil society organization. And this National Commission for CSR is spearheaded by the representative of the government, private sector, and civil society sector. They are now looking to add and increase the size of a portion of tax which need to go for CSR. And businesses are happy to do that because of the lack of conducive tax and taxation, tax incentives. So they're happy to push it through CSR. I'm giving you this as hints for all of us. So in my experience then, and the experience from the research, our struggles are very much interconnected, and our collective freedom will only come from collective struggles. Before I close, I would like to propose a resolution here today. And I trust it will be received with collective voice in the room. How then, if we decide from today, we strengthen our effort to ensure there is a Uganda national mechanism to ensure accountability and equitable access to CSR that is addressing community urgency, particularly pressing social and economic issues, justice issues. A mechanism that is also spearheaded by all the key development actors. The government should be there because we have been hearing government coming with so many efforts here from different sectors. They can be coordinated from that mechanism. Civil societies, most of us are coming from different ends, pushing on CSR. We can have coordinated effort, but also the private sector. We have been hearing examples here, private sector, and that can be private people. So both individual and institutions can be part of that. So I don't know how much time I have, but I really wish to invite insights and advice from you, my fellow local philanthropy developers in the room and actors, to provide insight and advice and suggest how can we jointly make this happen. We have had conversation over the 2 days. How can we jointly make this happen? Because it needs all of us. No one can do this by themselves. So before I conclude, I'll be very happy to hear a few ends sharing this, or we don't have time. We don't have time. So I think that is the question I'm posing, and I would really want to urge, because there are hands already, maybe you can write and we collect that paper, because it's a very important. If it is a resolution, then we need to hear so many voices in the room. So I would like then to conclude, because my colleagues are here, my brother is here asking me to make sure that I'm concluding. And I want to conclude by saying we all equally have a responsibility to ensure strategic partnerships and equitable access to CSR resources, all of us. It does not matter where you are and which level of operation you are in. There are private sector, there are businesses everywhere in Uganda, in our villages, in our district, in our provinces, everywhere we have that. And again, as I've said earlier, philanthropy is an act of giving. It comes with a lot of power in it. And we need to please make sure that we are part and parcel of making CSR accessible and equitable to most of us, and also to help us unlock the community challenge which are pressing. We have to exercise philanthropy that is rooted in our African values, and exercise our individual powers, because we all have powers, but we never get to exercise them very well. And also exercise our collective power to promote recognition of and to reclaim CSR as an alternative resource for community-led and for sustainable national development in Uganda. I would like to summarize this and end there. In Kiswahili, we'll say umoja ni nguvu.
Umoja ni nguvu. Na utengano? Na utengano? Nguvu sana. So we need to work together because that gives us strength. But working in silos, it does not help us that much. We say we go far if we work together, but we can go very fast if we work in silos. And that is an African proverb. Much love, and we are happy to be part of the resolution. How many are agreeing with the resolution? How many are part of this resolution? How many want to give their voice to this resolution? Can we see now more higher hands? How many of us wish to be part of this resolution? I won't ask Dr. Isoba and Jacqueline, I'll ask Chris. Have you seen the hands? Have you seen those which are not raised? We should start there. Thank you so very much, in solidarity.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Tenga, for sharing with us